Hello, hello. All right, I can hear myself. We should be good. Let me turn on the stream manager in case we get any spammers. Hi, hello, everybody. Welcome to the final Relocated review of the season, Relocated Season 1. We are one game away from ending this season, and that game obviously is the Super Bowl. And as you can see, we've been through the entire playoffs, went through the wild card on both AFC and NFC, divisional, and then we just got done with the conference championships. And your Super Bowl is the Brooklyn Dreadnoughts taking on the Oklahoma City Bison. Two teams that have done really well throughout the entire regular season. Two teams that, in my opinion, do deserve to be here. So, it's not like we didn't get, a Montreal that just squeaked in, but then all of a sudden, I mean, at this point, any person or any team would deserve to be here. But regardless, here we are, the Dreadnoughts and the Bisons. That's coming up this Saturday. This is the full bracket right here. It's not fully completed because it hasn't shown the scores of the Super Bowl yet, but this is essentially the final bracket. So take a good look at it. And what we're going to do in this review, first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the Pro Bowl roster because I want to see who, out of all the teams, all the players who did the best this year, and just to see that and just to have, go back and see the recollection of it and shit like that. Anyways, we're going to do that. We're going to look at all the stats and awards, specifically the yearly rewards. Well, actually, let's go through the weekly rewards. Oh, Pro Bowl. Okay, that's just there's a sneak peek of the Pro Bowl, but uh, we're gonna look at the weekly rewards for the last couple weeks of the regular season because we didn't get a chance to look at those because I just forgot. I think we were just so into the booster draft that we just completely forgot. But here we are. Here's a quick peek of those. I'm seeing Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, Jalen Hurts, Michael Penix, Nico Collins, and this was the backup week. Uh, oh yeah, the Steamers didn't sit out that week, but the Redwoods did, and Knight being on here is pretty damn good. It sucks that JJ McCarthy played a pretty damn good game and still couldn't make playoffs. Matthew Stafford on the Dublin Shamrocks in that game where they dominated the Dragons. Regardless, this is the wild card round. Sam Darnold pulling out a great game against the Sacramento Nighthawks. They end up winning that game. Amani Hooker getting two interceptions that ultimately won uh, the Dragons the game against the Antlers. Jameis Winston pulling up phenomenal numbers and still losing to the Dreadnoughts. 384 passing yards. And then you got Roquan Smith, who I think at the end of the day had the game decider with the pick six to Jameis Winston. So there's that. Here's the divisional round. Mac Jones pulling out phenomenal numbers against his division rival Leo Chanel, putting up good defensive numbers against the Bisons. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough. Jalen Hurts put up okay numbers, but 110 rushing yards. I guess that's why he's mainly in the spot. But unfortunately, losing to the Mounties sucks. But Chris Jones, defensive tackle for the Dreadnoughts, getting a forced fumble in their game. It was a shutout win by the to the Redwoods. And here's the conference championship games. In the NFC championship game, the NFC championship game, Tank Bigsby, the backup to Najee Harris, getting some pretty impressive stuff. 75 receiving yards, 47 rushing. He's got a rushing and receiving touchdown that game. Pretty good on him. Amik Robertson getting 2 interceptions and a touchdown, so one of them was a pick six. Good on him, but ultimately it was the Bisons who ended up getting that win. And then the Dreadnoughts, it looks like they dominated, but really it was a close game. But Baker Mayfield, almost 400 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown. Will Anderson Jr. also getting 3 sacks and 7 tackles in that game. So there you have it. Those are your final weekly rewards for the season. Now let's go to the yearly, because now we can officially look at. Well, actually, no, we're not gonna look at the yearly just yet. Well, okay, no, we're gonna do it because spoiler alert, I did actually, every time there's a Super Bowl, I always watch a game with full music and full commentary, just for my enjoyment, and I want to see like who ultimately wins the awards in the end. So we could go through that real quick. So Aiden Hutchinson, congratulations on him, a defensive edge rusher over many quarterbacks in this league who had phenomenal numbers. And the only one that's not a QB in the MVP race, he ends up winning because he broke the sack record in a lot less time. So, congratulations to Aiden Hutchinson. Coach of the Year, Dan Quinn for the Paris Steamers. 1-year coach, ended up being the number 1 seed. Jim Harbaugh was a close one, but he's also been here plenty of times before. Dan Quinn, his first time as a head coach. Is this his first time ever as a head coach in real life? I don't know. But I guess he wins Coach of the Year. So, congrats to him, I guess. So now let's look at the Offensive Players of the Year. So, in number 1, for the AFC, CeeDee Lamb, and Jalen Waddle for the NFC. And I can tell you right now, Offensive Player of the Year overall will be Jalen Waddle. That's right. He provided a lot for the Nighthawks for Justin Herbert. Big time receptions, big yardage for touchdowns. He's definitely offensive player. CeeDee Lamb, he gets his flowers though. Defensive Player of the Year, it's going to be Aiden Hutchinson. He won MVP. Come on. But someone that was tied with him was Nick Bonito on the Portland Antlers. I'm sure there'll be other people above him as well, but yeah, Aiden Hutchinson wins Defensive Player of the Year. Let's go to Offensive Rookie of the Year. So, in the AFC, you have Brooklyn Dreadnoughts player Ricky Pearsall. But on the NFC side, you have Xavier Worthy. And I can tell you guys right now, Xavier Worthy ends up winning this one. He also had big-time receptions, big-time touchdowns, big-time yards. On a Desperados team, regardless. So, yeah, he wins that award. Offensive Rookie. Defensive Rookie, you got Latu for the Montreal Mounties. And on the NFC side, you got Byron Murphy II, winning it for the NFC side for the Dublin Shamrocks. Impressive. But clearly, Latu wins this one. Best QB. So we got the Best QB award for both the AFC and the NFC. These don't count as like official awards, but it's just, who was voted in game the best. And this is kind of controversial. I'm not mad at it, but look how far Baker Mayfield is down on this list compared to like everyone else. Tua is higher than him, and they didn't really have that great of a season. But Jameis Winston is the winner for best QB in the AFC. The best QB in the NFC goes to Jane Daniels, obviously. Now that makes sense. Super Bowl Super Bowl quarterback right there. Best running back, Christian McCaffrey for the AFC on the Redwoods. And the best running back on the NFC is Najee Harris on the Bisons. Again, Christian McCaffrey is still the best running back, uh, at least this season. Like no one was beating him. Congrats to him. Best wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb for the AFC on the Montreal Mounties, and on the NFC side, Jalen Waddle. So you got your offensive players of the year for each one's, also winning best wide receiver for their respective conference. So best offensive lineman, Frank Ragnow for the Buenos Aires Aviators for the AFC side. And the NFC side, you got Creed Humphrey, who originally was on the Columbus Caps, but due to the booster draft, is now on the Oklahoma City Bison. So good on them. Best defensive lineman, Aiden Hutchinson, obviously, for the San Antonio Pioneers on the AFC side. NFC side, Myles Garrett for the Melbourne Monarchs. Both edge rushers, both good at what they do, so makes sense. But Aiden Hutchinson probably has him beat out. Best linebacker, Brian Burns from the Aviators on the AFC side, and Nick Bonito on the NFC side. Okay, there you go. Best defensive back, J.C. Horn for the Montreal Mounties. And on the NFC side, Patrick Surtain II for the Louisville Thunderbirds. That does make sense. That does make sense. Marshawn Lattimore not up there. Crazy. And then for the best kicker award, the best kicker in the AFC goes to Jason Sanders of the Montreal Mounties. And on the NFC side, Austin Seibert for the Melbourne Monarchs. Crazy. I thought Chris Boswell was going to win that. But there you have it. Those are all your official awards for the season. Since there's going to be no more weeks after this, those are going to be final. There's a screen that shows like the league history and like who wins and stuff. I'll show you guys that once we get around to it. That will happen after the Super Bowl, and I'll probably show that in the. It's not going to be the what if episode anymore, but it's going to be like the relocated aftermath. Yeah, that's what we're going to call it. The relocated aftermath. Anyways, those are the yearly awards. Let's go to the Pro Bowl roster. So, we're only going to look at the key ones, and then we're just going to, skim through all to see, who made it on the roster. Anthony Richardson being the first one, being QB1 on the NFC side. Kind of wild. Mac Jones is QB number 2. Makes sense. Makes sense. Bo Nix also makes sense for QB3. Jalen Hurts as QB1 for the AFC. Okay. Jameis Winston. I was going to say, if Jameis Winston wasn't up there, that would be crazy. Justin Fields, though. Debatable. Your halfback ones, your running backs, basically. Chuba Hubbard and Christian McCaffrey. That makes a lot of sense. Alvin Kamara and DeAndre Swift. Wow. And then you have Josh Jacobs and Kareem Hunt. Okay, that does make sense. We got Patrick Ricard and Kyle Juszczyk as your fullbacks. Jalen Waddle, CeeDee Lamb, Mike Evans, Jameson Williams, Marvin Mims, Justin Jefferson, Joshua Palmer, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Mark Andrews, yeah, Mark Andrews by far probably. If there was a category for best tight end, it would probably be Mark Andrews. Noah Fant would also be up there as well. Kyle Pitts, Evan Engram. Yeah, I'm not. I'm actually not mad at these tight ends. Then you got. This is where we're gonna start grazing through Tunsil, Darisaw, Mailata, Slater, Tunney, Smith, Nelson, Lewis, R. Kelly. Fuck you. You're banned. Uh, Frank Ragnow, Tyler Biotish, uh, Linderbaum. I forgot his first name. Kevin Zietler, Kevin Dotson. Is that Tyron Smith or Trey Smith? I don't know. Quinn Miners, Pine Sewell, Lane Johnson, Brown, Rashawn Gary, Aiden Hutchinson, obviously, Greg Rousseau, Christian Wilkins, Miles Garrett, Josh Hines Allen, Von Miller, and Jermaine Johnson. Oh, so both edge rushers for the Pioneers ended up getting the Pro Bowl. So that's good. Byron Murphy. As a defensive tackle? Uh, am I reading that correctly? It's got to be a different one. It's got to be a different one. Okay. Uh, then you got Jones, White, Clark, Hargrave, Breesy. You got Benito and Browning. Uh, Joey Bosa, huh? And Jalen Phillips. Unfortunately, he was out with an injury. Would that affected much Condors losing him, losing to the Mounties? I don't know. Brooks, Wilson, White, Wagner, Chubb, Burns, Diaby, and Owe. Trayvon Diggs, J.C. Horn, Pat Surtain, Randy Moss, Sauce Gardner, Shaq Griffin, Darius Slay, Legarius Sneed, Josh Simmons, Julius Peppers, or is it Jabril Peppers? I don't know. Bullard, Fitzpatrick, McKinney, Battle, Lake, Simmons. Then you got Harrison Butker, who I believe was the kicker for Orlando. And Jake Bates, the kicker for the Condors. Weird that those guys made the Pro Bowl, but someone like Sanders didn't. Interesting. Stonehouse, Jack Fox, Jackson, Bradbury, Ezekiel Elliott made it as a punt returner, and Scott. And those are your NFC and AFC Pro Bowl teams. Unfortunately, no Pro Bowl game because EA like to be absolutely fucking lazy. So, unfortunately, we don't get to see a game. If they ever do come out with a game that we could play, then I will for sure be simming that. But until then, EA is just going to be EA. Alright, the final thing we're going to do is look at all the playoff teams that have unfortunately been eliminated and just recollect on their season. Just because, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I guess we'll look at the playoff bracket and we'll go down the list. So let's start with the Blues. The Blues, led by Dak Prescott, it. I mean, they were absolutely a good team. Let's not get the facts wrong on that. I think they were carried hard by their defense. Their offense was good, but it was never elite. It got them just enough to win, games, and the defense didn't really allow that many points. But unfortunately, it came down to crunch time. Monty's ended up beating them, which is unfortunate, but I feel like eventually they would have gotten eliminated. So, yeah, unfortunate for the Blues. Which I think with a little more offensive prowess, you're probably looking at a new running back. Get rid of Rico Dowdle, but it's not like it matters because rosters change next season. Then the Salt Lake City Elks. This one hurts because I feel like in my soul, this team is a lot better than the team last year, and unfortunately, by legacy standards, they're probably not going to be better. Because at least the team last year made it to the AFC Championship. These guys got knocked out by the wild card round, but they got knocked out by a team who is in the Super Bowl. So I can't really. It's unfortunate for them, but with Jameis Winston at the back, and then they had a few returning superstars, and the superstars they got rid of or they couldn't get, they've got replaced by other superstars. Like for example, they had Aiden Hutchinson last year. Got replaced by Trey Hendrickson this year, who, I mean, I'll be honest, he didn't really make too much of an impact, but hey, I'd rather have him than, some random Joe Schmo. But Jameis Winston put up a lot better numbers than I would say Derek Carr did last season on the Elks. But again, it's just unfortunate. They No, it's hard to say. Sometimes Jameis Winston looked like a god, but sometimes it just wasn't even enough, especially for the defense. I do think that they had a significantly uh, worse defense. I wouldn't say worse in you know as like a big thing, but it was definitely different from what it was last year. And yeah, it's a shame, but it is what it is. It's the nature of the playoffs. Then the San Antonio Pioneers losing to the Redwoods 10-7 and a very defensive showing. Yeah, I San Antonio was known for their defense. Obviously, they got an MVP caliber edge rusher in Aiden Hutchinson. Uh, but their offense wasn't really that impressive. I mean, they had their moments. Don't get me wrong, but overall, the offense was like great at best, and they didn't really show great too much. It was really just the defense that has carried them all the way to the playoffs. Not like they were a bad team by any standards, but eventually, some people were going to match the defense, which is what the Redwoods did. You know, say what you want about Aiden Hutchinson, Jermaine Johnson. They also had who? Dexter Lawrence. Say what you want about those guys, but the Redwoods defense and the basically matching them, and they were just able to squeak out a win against them. Need more offensive tools. Need more offensive weapons to get better. We'll probably say that in the aftermath, but I did like the San Antonio team though. It was different, and they definitely improved from last season where they had Mac Jones, which we'll get the Mac Jones in a bit. Next, the Condors. Unfortunately, I mean the Condors definitely had a better team this year, but they get out in the same round as they did last year, despite having the first round bye. It was rough. I think their game plan going into this game really hurt them. And that was their game plan was just really run the ball with Derrick Henry, but that barely even worked. And it showed. Now they almost came back as you could see, they were down by a couple scores, but the Mounties were just hot. They couldn't do anything about that. But the Condors, they were clearly the best team in the league by far. Uh, Mainly because Jalen Hurts, his run game was really good. And if they didn't rely on him, they had Derrick Henry, who didn't really do too much, but hey, he was there. And then when Jalen Hurts needed to bring out the passing game, he had his good weapons to pass it to. Jalen McMillan, DJ Moore, Noah Fant. This team had the tools to be a top tier team. And I mean, I feel like they were, but they, you know, again, nature of the playoffs, one and you're done. And, they had the mistake of a terrible game plan going up against the Mounties, which cost them a chance at the Super Bowl. So, unfortunate for them, but I feel like they're just going to get better, especially, with their booster pick, Nick Bosa. I'm saying this like, again, we're going to be doing the same rosters next year, but that's not going to happen. But yeah, so speaking of the Redwoods from the Pioneers matchup, the Oakland Redwoods, they got shut out by the Dreadnoughts. I feel like this was inevitable. Once you stop the run game from them, it's really not hard. They in a way, I mean, they were one of the best wildcard teams, that's for sure. But I mean, they were pretty one dimensional. They got away with it because they have Justin Fields. If they took away Christian McCaffrey, they had Justin Fields running it. Justin Fields could also pull out the passing game, have Devontae Adams and co catch it and shit like that. But at the end of the day, they just relied on the run a little bit too much. It got them through a lot of games. It got them to 11 wins, but eventually something like this was bound to happen against a better team. And then finally, on the AFC side, the Montreal Mounties. The Mounties were pretty good. Well, they were really good. I mean, they were competing with the Dreadnoughts the whole season on who's going to win the AFC East. But they were struggling at the end of the regular season. Not really being offensive powerhouses like they were known to be in the first half of the season. But then all it took was one quarter from the Blues and then them showing basically, in my opinion, their best game against the Condors. Took them to the AFC Championship game. And with Russell Wilson at the helm and plenty of players of the years like C.D. Lamb, Curtis Samuel, I saw up there as well, J.C. Horn, everyone on this team. Everyone on this team's a star. Russell Wilson, he was on the Bisons last year, who have made the Super Bowl this year. I mean, that would have been an incredible story for sure. I mean, you guys didn't get to see him on the Bisons, and you didn't see the Mounties last year, but it would have been a story in my eyes. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. The Brooklyn Dreadnoughts are just the better team, and they've shown that they're the better team than the Montreal Mounties in the regular season. But the Mounties are there. The Mounties are there. They have the tools to be an elite team, just not this year, and not with the same roster next year. On the NFC side, let's go to the Omaha Bulls. The Omaha Bulls. I don't know what to think about this team. Out of all these teams here, they're the least deserving of getting to playoffs, because despite having a great offense, I mean a fantastic offense, they didn't really do much. They didn't really score much, especially with like Lamar Jackson, MVP caliber quarterback, and yet they couldn't do shit. you probably have to put it all on the defense for not allowing that many points as well for them to get to this spot. But they've had so many times where they could have beaten Louisville in the NFC North and they just couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. And Louisville, they don't look necessarily like the best team, but Omaha had so many chances and they just couldn't do it. So it's a shame, but they did improve from the second worst team in the league from last year. So that's saying something. Getting to playoffs is no slouch for that team. The Portland Antlers pulling off an incredible story. Just winning on that last stretch, Sacramento losing out, and they were able to take away the division from them on the final game. Not the final game of the season, but it was in the final week. All for it to mean nothing and just to lose to the Dragons. And they didn't even score a touchdown. But this team offensively, I really do like. They had their moments of greatness, and then they had their moments of... But that was really the beginning of the season. But at the end of the season, it just seemed like everything was clicking for the team. And it's a shame they couldn't go far in this playoff. I was hoping they kind of would, but they met the Dragons. And the Dragons were, trying to go back to old form. Unfortunately, not this game, but the defense really showed up for Portland. And I think that's really what killed it for the Antlers, is the amount of turnovers that C.J. Stroud had. And so many were in Dragons territory. So a lot of could have beens for the Antlers, but unfortunately they can't get the win here. But impressive way to not give up in the season. And then we move on to the Nighthawks, who the Antlers took their spot from. Nighthawks were dominant in their division for at least the first 3 quarters of the season. And then they just choked it away. I believe they end on a 6-game losing streak, which is wild. And Justin Herbert, the leader of this team, he was on the St. Louis Sentinels last year, and he was one of the best QBs in the entire league. The amount of plays he was making was unbelievable. And then some would think like maybe he improved by going on this team. He has actual weapons that he could throw to. I mean, in a way, it kind of looked better because he had Bijan Robinson, but he ended up shitting the bed. Jalen Waddle, Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, what more could you ask from that? But the defense for this Nighthawks team was not really that great. It wasn't that great, especially towards the end. And it wasn't even good enough to take down the Thunderbirds, who offensively, they're not too great. But anyways, unfortunate for the Nighthawks that they choked their own division away, but it is what it is. The Paris Steamers. Now, the Paris Steamers were coming in on a 7-game win streak. 7 or 8 game win streak. After going, 5-5? Yeah, so it's 7 games. 7 or 8 games. I don't know. But they were able to snatch the division away from the Dragons, who were at the top. And it was an impressive story because in my opinion, they were kind of under the radar. I wasn't really paying too much attention to them because I'm like, oh, they seem like a middle of the pack team. It is what it is. But ended up getting the first seed in the NFC. It's pretty damn good. Unfortunate, though, that they lost to the Tokyo Dragons, allowing them to get their revenge for the division. But the team, offensively, I feel like really good. Defensively, also, was no slouch either. The Louisville Thunderbirds. Well, defensively, one of the best in the league. Offensively, one of the worst in the league. But well, I say, look at the score 21-22. You would think, oh, the offense, they look pretty good. Well, you got to realize that two of those touchdowns were pick sixes. I mean, and that game really just simplifies like how the Louisville Thunderbirds season was. You know, they had the first drive, which was a touchdown by the offense. That was good. Then they had two back-to-back pick sixes, and this was all in the first quarter, and they did nothing after that. Nothing. Like zip zero nada. Not even a field goal. The offense was allowed to even get. Uh, and that just goes to show you the Louisville Thunderbirds season. Their offense was just not good, but their defense was so. It's kind of like a aviator situation from last year, where the defense was so good that offense could score as low as points as possible, and they get to where they are. Unfortunately, though, it's been proven that it won't get you too far. It got them to the divisional round, I will say that. But it also got the Aviators to the divisional round, and as you can see, they lost that. They did lose by 1 point. So who knows? Like, if the Bisons weren't as clutch, 9 times out of 10, Louisville probably wins this one. And then finally, the Tokyo Dragons started off as one of the best teams in the league in the first half. And then they just totally shit it away. I don't know what happened with this team. They turned into the choke artist. No matter what Mac Jones could do, no matter what Mandrews could do, it just felt like they were just they were on the struggle bus. At one point, they were 8-2, and they ended the season 10-7. Not even like they're the sixth seed in the wild card, and it kind of makes you question like how did this even happen? But for the playoffs, they did rally up. You know, they scored 12, four field goals, no touchdowns, and still were able to beat the Antlers. And then they were able to get their revenge on the Steamers. So that was pretty good on them. I think it plays more into the defense of the Dragons than it does the offense. They had a pretty good showing too against the Bisons, but unfortunately, it was all for naught. But maybe you have to search for a more consistent quarterback in the draft. Who knows? Who knows? But I guess good on. I guess it doesn't matter at the end of the day whether you suck at certain parts during the regular season. You could still get up to this point of being one game away from the Super Bowl, and that's where the Dragons were. And that is all the playoff teams that have been eliminated so far. But now we're going to talk about two more teams, the final two teams, and we're going to actually advance the week, if I'm not forgetting anything. Oh, there it is. Aiden Hutchinson, MVP. Oh, there's some coach on Dan Quinn. As you can see, Aiden Hutchinson, defensive player. They're just telling you all the NFC and AFC players of the years and shit like that. Oh, Ricky Pearsall got Rookie of the Year. What the fuck? That's not what it said in the. Okay, well, regardless. Oh, Byron Murphy is a defensive tackle. Okay. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know. But no, let's go to one of the teams. Oh, well. All right, here it is. The Brooklyn Dreadnoughts versus the Oklahoma City Bisons for the season 1 Super Bowl. Last year, it was the Rio de Janeiro Riverhawks taking on the St. Louis Sentinels. Rio ended up winning that one. Both teams didn't make it, so now we got new contenders for the throne. So let's talk about this game. Because these two teams are super good. Super, super, super good. OKC, the best team with points per game. Best offensive points per game, the second best passing in the game. Rushing, they don't really rush a lot. But it's still pretty good regard. I mean, they're more middle of the pack with rushing. They're mainly focused on the passing. This is mainly a passing team. But it's not like their rushing is bad either. Brooklyn have the 12th most offensive points per game, and they are fifth in passing. So they're still pretty good passers, but not as great as the OKC Bisons. They got the slight edge in rushing against them, though. Defense is where it favors Brooklyn. They're 10th in points allowed per game, whereas the Bisons are 25th, 20th in passing defense, and Brooklyn's 17th passing defense. So not really too much to go on about there. Defensive rushing, Brooklyn's fifth. OKC's got the slight edge of four. So really, kind of even in terms of defense, except for the points allowed. Brooklyn allowed the 10th least points to teams. So it really must be like, red zone defense, preventing the field goal or getting in the field goal range and shit like that. That's where Brooklyn excels. But OKC definitely got them in the passing game. So, if Baker Mayfield is able to keep pace with OKC, I think Brooklyn will have a chance. I mean, it's going to be a super close game. No matter how you spin it, it's just going to be super close. Possibly the hardest game I had to predict the entire season. Like, I don't even know who to pick. I'll be honest. In the simulation game that I did with the commentary, literally, if you guys remember the Philly Eagles game against the Kansas City Chiefs, the first one in the Super Bowl, Philly, I feel like we're up most of that time, but it was still going back and forth. And then it ended up being tied 35-35 until Kansas City kicked the field goal. And that's what happened in that game. OKC got the win from the last seconds kicking a field goal 38-35. And winning the commentary game. The game that you guys didn't get to see. But we're going to play a totally different game. You guys are going to see it. This will be on Saturday. I don't know what time because I still do have work I got to do. But it will have to be Saturday. It won't be Sunday because I will be on vacation. So, yeah, that's how that's going to go. But who do I think will win this game? I'm gonna. both were clutch in the playoff bracket. I mean, let's look at the playoff bracket. Brooklyn won against the Elks in a very comeback situation. Oh, I forgot. We'll get to the injury report as well. But Michael Mayer with the game-winning touchdown for the Dreadnoughts, able to stop the Elks in the end. Then they dominated the Redwoods. No, nothing to really talk about there. And then they, offensively, were just the better team than the Mounties, allowing them to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. The Bisons dominated the Bulls. However, Jane Daniels got those 2 pick sixes, which allowed them to go down 21-0, and they were still able to come back from that. And then it wasn't really a complete stomping, but Bisons were just a better team than the Dragons. So, yeah, that's how they got here. Let's look at the injury report real quick for both teams. Because I do remember saying, Michael Mayer was originally going to make the game. It turns out he's going to be 1 week away from getting cleared, which unfortunately is not in time for the Super Bowl, so he won't make it. We'll see. But Quan Alexander, a middle linebacker, he won't be able to show up for the Bisons and the Dreadnoughts. As you see, Michael Mayer, unfortunately, with the foot fracture, he won't not be available to play. I think I could try. No, yeah, see, I can't. It won't allow me to take him off IR. So, unfortunately, both teams are not going to have everyone to start. Michael Mayer probably hurts more for the Dreadnoughts. But the way I'm looking at this is if Jaden Daniels turns over the ball like he did against Louisville, then it might be an issue. He turned over the ball against the Dragons as well. So he just needs to take better care of the ball. And if he does that, I think Bisons could very well come away with this. Any mistakes, though, by them, it's really like the Dreadnoughts. I don't want to say they got to play perfect, but as long as they keep to their game and they capitalize on the Bison's mistakes, then Dreadnoughts could win this. But who do I see winning this? Who do I see winning this game? I'm going to go with I kind of want the Dreadnoughts to win. But I think I'm going with the Bisons. I think the Bisons offensively are just too good. And yeah. That's really it. I just think they're the better team. Jane Daniels, he's an MVP level quarterback. If he doesn't show it this game, I have no idea what to think. But that's my prediction for the season 1 Super Bowl. And that's really it. That's all I got for this Relocated review. For the rest of the season. So no more reviews after this. No more hearing me blab on about teams and shit like that. But I want to thank you guys for watching, if you did watch. It's been a hell of a season. We watched all these games just for this result. The Brooklyn Dreadnoughts taking on the Oklahoma City Bisons. Again, this will be happening Saturday, not Sunday. I won't be here. So that would be my last day to get anything done as far as Relocated goes. But uh, and then after that, after I'm done with my vacation, we'll do a little bit of the aftermath. I'll probably be showing what it would look like if they didn't relocate, how the teams look with the non-relocated jerseys and such. And then we got the draft, and then we'll do the draft, and then we'll simulate a whole season next and see where it goes from there. But that will be it after uh, after the aftermath, and then we will actually have normal football to focus on until next year, where hopefully there are relocated teams. I do believe they said the relocated teams are back, so there might be a season 2 of Relocated. But again, and to anyone who watched these reviews, to anyone who watched even just a second or just a match anytime during the regular season, during playoffs, uh, I have to thank you. Originally, I was just going to do this as a way to, pass the time out of my boredom. That's what I did with season 0. But I was like, you know what? I just want to document this just to have the memory of it. And in reality, that's why I started streaming this whole thing in the first place. Uh, and yeah, I've had some incredible games, some incredible endings to some games, and some frustrating endings to some games. I'm looking at those fucking ties with the evil fucking eye. But again, thank you to anyone who has watched this, who is actually legitimately a person and not these spammers that keep showing up in my chat. Thank you guys for showing up, and thank you guys for supporting. If you don't support, then fuck you. But that is it for the Relocated review. Saturday, Brooklyn versus Oklahoma City to crown the season 1 Super Bowl champion. I will see you guys then. I will be doing commentary for that. Until then, smiles out.